What's up, rockers? Welcome to another episode of the Talk Louder podcast, where we geek out on all things rock and roll. Hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. Leave us your likes and comments. You can also leave likes and comments on our Facebook page. Follow us on iTunes, Spotify, Instagram, and of course at our website, talklouderpodcast.com. I'm Metal Dave Glessner, along with my co-host Jason McMaster. And today's guest, we're joined today by Brijitte West, who you'll remember from the band New York Loose. They were sort of at the forefront of the mid-1990s New York. I guess you could call it like a glam punk revival.
Yeah,
in the mix.
that's a good way to say it. There were a
Yeah,
lot of bands doing that. She mentions a short list. You mentioned a short list. What would be your list that would sort of like that glam punk New York rock?
yeah. I mean, they were out. They were around the same time frame as, say, D-Generation, the Toilet Boys. New York Loose was right there in the running. Um, Put out an album that's considered a bit of an underground classic called "The Year of the Rat." Um, and that's what they're best known for. And Brijitte, of course, is going to tell us today about what she's up to currently. She's still releasing music. She's been living in England since the late 90s, I guess, originally from New Jersey. And yeah,
Very,
she,
very cool rock and roll lady.
yeah,
And you know, her story starts in New Jersey and ends in England, and she's going to tell us a lot about that. And you think about, whoa, that's crazy, and New Orleans and Los Angeles are right in the middle of that journey. And from touring with Marilyn Manson and writing songs with Sean from White Zombie in a group called Famous Monsters, it's kind of like crazy that she's not even just an inkling more of a household name,
yeah.
just as
And,
far
and
as her whole thing.
and me being the Ramones nerd, of course, I had to ask her some Ramones stories, and she really opens up about Dee Dee in particular. So that we appreciated that. Great talking to her. A really interesting story, and as you say, she kind of bounced around quite a bit, and has new music to talk about with us today. So let's bring her on in and get talking about what's going on in the world of Brijitte West. So tell us, Brijitte, we're, got some ground to cover going back to New York Loose and obviously up to your current stuff. Let's start, I guess, with the present. Tell us about Lockdown and the inspiration behind it and where people can find it. Just kind of give us a snapshot of where you are right now musically.
Well, I mean, I where I am right now musically, or actually where I was in the 2020 lockdown, 2021, I mean, craziness that we've all been through. It kind of occurred to me that, oh my God, the whole world is going through this, or actually, or most of the world is going through this. All of the people that I know across the globe have been impacted by this pandemic and are having to do this thing called isolation. And actually, I mean, in prison, the kind of the top, sort of punishment is called isolation. Do you know what I mean? I was like, this is so cruel. It's such a cruel sort of reality that we're all going through. And I had like the first guitar player from New York Loose died. His name was Steve Antonaco. So he played on the Bitch 7 inches. I mean, he was like early doors, New York Loose. I was just thinking, my God, everybody's going through this thing. I actually have a couple of fans out there or people that actually will want to hear from me. What can I do for my fans? And so I picked up my guitar and I just did these live recordings on my iPhone. And that's Lockdown. Okay, so most of them, I think there's most of the songs are just sort of me doing either some covers or some old New York Loose songs. And then I actually was able to have the opportunity to go into a studio. Actually, I didn't have the opportunity to go into a studio, but I had the opportunity to work remotely with someone, and it was the very first time I did that. So that was interesting. So I worked remotely with these producers and was able to kind of generate these songs that are sort of the studio ones. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting what isolation does to creative people. They either get really inspired out of boredom or introspection, or else you kind of shut down because you don't have the stimulation from the outside world.
Yeah.
Or you learn how to have a podcast.
Yeah.
So many amazing things have happened from this, and you're right. But I think everybody, it's sort of down to like what you want to do with your 24 hours you have in your day.
Right.
What do you want to do with it? So there's been a lot of amazing things that have happened around the pandemic, but and I'm hoping, what I did was a very small part of that. So
Yeah. I think Jason and I have seen some of our friends in the music business do a number of collaborations remotely, as you were saying earlier, and like he said, we started this podcast. So it's like, if you're a creative person and you take advantage of the time off, I guess, who knows what can come out of it. So you managed to get some songs out there to your fans, so that's
yeah,
really cool.
exactly.
I
Yeah.
feel like if you're your creative personality, you you secretly, and you don't realize it secretly, but you are longing for these. I'll use your word, isolated. This isolation, so you can dig around in here and create something as a painter, as a sculptor, as I mean, I guess if you were a landscaper, it would be similar, but because you're not really around anyone and you're usually covered
Yeah.
up or anything, or if you're a spaceman, you're not around anybody or you're covered up, or, there's all these different walks of life that this situation we've all been thrown into has sort of released the beast. I know that there's a lot of people who are took a darker path
Mm,
during this time because of depression. And it could have
yeah.
been from something else that was in their life. And that's just terrible. Those people do not need isolation. They need to be able
Yeah.
to keep socializing, and it's the way that they sort of feed their souls if they are someone like that. Honestly, not to make it be about me again, sometimes that happens. I I feel like this has been very productive for me and
Yeah.
for you. And I'll even throw Dave in here because, he's a writer. I mean, he doesn't like get on stage and write in front of people. See what I'm saying? So
Right.
Yeah.
there's this
Well,
part of all of us who are creative ghosts, if you will,
I like that. I
can
like
put
that creative ghost
yeah,
thing
can
because
well,
it's
because
true.
because you're not standing in a line signing autographs or even with a bucket on the corner begging for money. You're not in front of anybody. You're not doing anything
That's
other
right.
than being within this. Your soul is still intact, but the only way people can see you is on this stupid camera. Is it real? It's a ghost
Yeah.
of some sort. So anyway,
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's that virtual self, that we're
yeah,
all sort of now having to be really in touch with our virtual self. In
yeah.
fact, that's one of the songs on the new album is called "Can You Talk," and that's exactly what it's about. It's about meeting someone during lockdown, forming a friendship with them, not actually ever being able to meet them, not knowing when you can meet them, and then sort of like this whole idea of like, well, we're texting and we're and that's really great because texting is good and you can just say whatever you want and you can like send it and you can, but then it's like that moment you're like, can you actually talk to me? Can you have a conversation with me? Because in isolation, it's so almost rare to actually be able to just pick up the phone, especially now. It's almost this arcane like idea of like actually just picking up the phone and calling someone because everybody
Yeah.
texts and WhatsApp.
Yeah, I
So
feel
yeah,
like
so that's what that song is about. So that was
awesome.
totally inspired by that sort of virtual self, like how much we live in this virtual world now.
Do you feel like, or do you agree, that like a text message or even an email rather is kind of like a fuse. You lightning a fuse and you're just like waiting for the other person to respond, which could go one way or the other,
I love that. I love
depending on
that
what you
analogy.
say. Well, you know, it's
Yeah.
kind of what I do. Uh,
Yeah.
and-
I mean, I think it's cool because, and there is sort of like some sort of scientific evidence that sort of says that texting and all these sorts of things, and that's why like social media is so addictive,
Yeah.
because it actually releases the same sort of endorphins that some of the addictive sort of substances do. So when you send something and then you're waiting for that reply, and you're hoping it's the reply that you want, and you get it, it's like a hit.
Yeah.
And so it is like a fuse.
It's the
But
anticipation.
at some point you're just like, look, let's just do this and let's just talk. Let's
Yeah.
just actually be human. A
complete-
human
it's
to
the-
human
it's the-
conversation.
It's the complete opposite of, hey, oh yeah, come say that to my face. Complete opposite.
I always joke that I joke that I use my phone for everything except talking.
That's it.
So I text and I email and I surf
Yeah,
the internet,
that's
and I rarely actually use it to talk, which is kind of interesting since that's
But you
how
have such an amazing voice. I mean, you need to use that more.
Thank you. So, yeah, and it's and I've got a face for radio, so that helps. Yeah.
I didn't mean that.
When you said you picked up your guitar and you just turned on you recorded some songs on your phone and
On my phone, yeah.
yeah, and the inspiration was self inflicted via the lockdown, if you will.
Yeah.
And what came to you first? Because every writer has a different sort of like muse, right? What came to you first on these songs, and was it any different than other songs you've written in the past?
Well, okay, so the ones I did just on my guitar, where I picked up the guitar, I did a Velvet Underground song called Pale Blue Eyes.
Okay.
And I just had that song running around in my head, and I just thought, let me just learn this song and play it. And I did, and I just thought, wow, I really like this song, and I've always liked that song. And I recorded it, it sounded good, so put it out. It was sort of just let me give, to be really, really honest with you, now that I'm actually talking about it, I've always wanted to do just an acoustic album. Like, it was just me and the acoustic guitar. I always wanted to do sort of like my version of like So Alone by Johnny Thunders or something. Yeah. And, something kind of dirty, but kind of like earthy at the same time, and raunchy and that sort of very organic feeling. So it was sort of like, I felt like, oh, let me just do this, because then I can kind of see what that'll sound like if it's just me and the guitar. And I thought it was okay, so I put it out.
Yeah.
That's kind of it.
Is this typical for you when it comes to writing music? Do you typically work in isolation, or are you more used to collaborating with band members and other songwriters, or is it a little bit of both?
It's mostly just me. Like, most of the stuff that that you hear that is mainly me, because I get into some kind of weird zone, and I don't even know how I do it. It's one of those things where you just feel like the song is already there and I'm just pulling it out of the air.
Yeah. What comes to you first?
Yeah, that's funny that you're reading my mind, Jason, from all the way over there. I get both at the same time, which is so weird. So like, I'll get like these words, and it'll come with a melody, and all I'm doing is I'm looking at my guitar, and it's like, yeah, let me just. It's already there. It's really difficult to explain. It's as if the song is already written.
I get that.
And then I have to go, am I ripping anybody off?
Right.
Like, wait, is this song actually already written?
Yeah, that was too easy, right?
That's when you would have to lean into your closest friends and, all right, listen to this. Tell me who I'm ripping off right now.
Exactly.
So I can change a couple of notes.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. That sometimes it happens that way. And those are usually the best songs. And are the ones that are easy to write. And I'm a huge fan of Roy Orbison. I mean, random. But he said that he had the same thing. So when he wrote all of his amazing songs that you can't, he was like, he said something like the most amazing songs are songs that you can say the words, but you must also sing the melody. So you can never separate the melody from the words. Mm-hmm. And I always thought that was such an amazing concept. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of how I do it. So it's usually very much in isolation. I need to sort of be totally alone for many hours a day, which is a feat in itself because I have 2 kids and I'm like, but they're older now, so that's good. So they're now they're teenagers. It's a lot easier. But yeah. So it's usually just me and a guitar and just a lot of time on my hands.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
do you ever feel like people... Go ahead, Dave.
Go ahead, Jason.
Go ahead, Dave. No, it's cool.
I was going to just real quick ask Brijitte where people can find your stuff if they're interested in listening to your songs, and where you don't have a record deal and distribution in the traditional sense of the old music business. So where do they find you? A website or something?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to first of all, obviously I'm known for New York Loose, You're the Rat, which I'm very, very proud of that album still.
Yeah.
And I've done, I did a solo album in 2010, which was called Brijitte West and the Desperate Hopefuls. And then I did one in 2016, which was Brijitte West and the Desperate Hopefuls, the same sort of band I had. And that was called From New York with Love. And then I have Lockdown, and everything is online. So you can get it on Spotify and Apple Music and all of the main platforms.
Yeah. Okay. You mentioned the Desperate Hopefuls, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, Gary Sunshine, the Circus of Power guitarist, did he collaborate with you on one of those albums, or
no? He was the first guitar player, actually the second guitar player for New York Loose. Okay. So I did a lot of work with him with New York Loose.
Okay, yeah.
Well, we're big circus fans.
Okay.
Yeah. Saw them on the Call of the Wild tour, and I was very friendly with those guys every time they came through, and me and Alex were buddies for a long time. And I always thought that when I read that about you and that you had 6 degrees of separation with Gary Sunshine, I got happy. So
yeah, Gary is amazing. He's a great guitar player, and he's an amazing songwriter in his own right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So speaking of New York Loose, that's probably the band that puts you on everyone's radar. That's kind of where you first made your mark, and you came out in a time like New York in the mid 1990s was a very there was a pretty vibrant scene as far as sort of this glam punk, almost a revival with bands like New York Loose. You had D-Generation, you had the Toilet Boys.
Yeah.
It seemed like a really cool scene, and all those bands were critically acclaimed and had a great buzz going in the underground, but none of them really reached a broader audience or had any major commercial success, even though all the ingredients were in place. So
I know.
What do you attribute that to? Because there was certainly a lot of talent in that time period in New York, in that style of music too.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? I think maybe we were just a bit too, we have to remember, grunge was sort of coming up then. So it was like Nirvana was really sort of starting to become the thing. So it was sort of really, to be very, very not glam and not pretty and not clean and not, you know what I mean? I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
So maybe some of that. I know our record company was just diabolically bad. Our manager was a total, complete idiot. So I think, if I really think that if I had a better manager and a better label, I think that New York Loose would have been a success. Yeah. I actually attribute it to that, because you can still listen to You're the Rat and go, it still sounds great. And I'm saying that as much of a fan of the band and everyone that was involved in it, because it wasn't just me. It was Julian Raymond, the producer. It was all of the guys. It was the time. It was the energy that everybody gave to that album. And, that's what I think. I think that if we had a better manager and a better record company, I think we would have been successful. I certainly think that I would have been able to launch a more successful solo career and all that sort of stuff. Degeneration, I don't know. I'm not sure why they didn't become successful. That maybe we were just too much like the real thing. Do you know what I mean? Maybe we were just a little bit not enough. Not enough commercialism.
Yeah.
Not really sure.
Yeah.
But we did a lot of touring with bands like Marilyn Manson and that kind of stuff. So, and they got huge radio play and all that sort of thing. But they had a great record company and a really good manager. So it really comes down to it. It's like, I don't know if you guys are fans of a band called The Replacements.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so I always look at The Replacements and go, why did REM become so huge and The Replacements never did? I mean, not that they were sort of the same kind of sound, sort of, right? It was sort of that very singer-songwriter, but had a little bit of like that country kind of, but, big star type feel.
Yeah.
And, but it's all down to the manager and the label, unfortunately. Yeah. Ironically, now I think the label and the manager have less to do with whether or not a record is successful.
Yeah.
Because now it's very much grassroots. And if you can get out on the road and if you can start a really good social following, then you're probably going to do really well.
Yeah, we all in here know that. It's like, I feel like the hippies and the punk rockers had it down. And they were just hitchhiking and playing for beer and gas money. And they really created what DIY sort of created different sounds of rock music.
Yeah.
The DIY and the punk, where the punk rockers and the hippies were this actual coalition, whether they realized it or not, sprang forth, hardcore bands who were doing the same thing. And I feel like bands like Nirvana and any metropolis that had a healthy scene had these bands that would intercross, and the whole fanzine thing that the Headbangers picked up.
That's right. But what was wrong with the New York? And I've talked about this before, and no one's ever really questioned me about it. So I'll just say it again because I think it's true. In fact, I did have a couple of people going, right on, Brijitte. I was there, and I know that is true. That the New York scene didn't support each other. Didn't support each other. I mean, I was not supported at all by the other bands in the scene.
Wow.
A lot of it was because I was a girl, and they were like, how can you do this? You're a girl. How can you be writing these songs and play guitar like that? And it was like almost like I wasn't allowed. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Seems like there's other women in the same scene that
anybody heard of Debbie Harry?
Broke out that did pretty good, and
I know.
It's a bummer that it wasn't just like the door was just blown open by whomever, and then it
wasn't.
stayed
In
open.
fact, the door was very much slammed shut quite a lot because of jealousy, because everybody it was so cutthroat. New York is a very cutthroat, and that's a really good analogy again that you brought up. So in the CBGB scene, it was there was the Ramones, it was television, it was Blondie, right?
Yeah.
It was all of those sort of the New York bands.
Wasn't Patty hanging around in there all the time with everyone?
Patti Smith, yeah. I mean, and everybody supported each other, but in New York, it really wasn't like that. I mean, we all sort of maybe played on the same bill, but everybody was like covering up everybody else's posters, and it was very, very cutthroat.
Yeah.
And I think that if we actually joined together and we were a bit more of a union, like the Seattle scene and like the actual original punk scene in New York, I think we all would have done a lot better.
Yeah. So Year of the Rat was well received. I mean, it didn't move a lot of major numbers or anything, but it was critically acclaimed and the fans loved it. And I guess you've kind of alluded to this. I was going to ask, so based on that type of momentum, what caused the band to just break up? Because you were kind of making a mark and making it well, and then all of a sudden, poof. And I
Yeah.
guess you kind of alluded to it a little bit.
Yeah. So we were on the, I mean, yes, we were on the Crow City of Angels soundtrack, which sold 1 million albums. So that was really, really good. So I'm like, wow, that's awesome. So now we have like our platinum album, whatever. And we were I guess, so you kind of, I'm sorry, but did you want to know why we broke up or what happens? Or
Yeah, basically, because as an outsider, it seems to me that you were, you had some momentum going, and the album
Yes.
was you were
Yeah.
signed, the album was well received, there was a fan base building, and then it's kind of like I always kind of find Jane's Addiction interesting because they broke up at the peak of their powers, and you don't often see that. Bands usually to cling to that will either compromise their artistic integrity or get along with people they don't want to get along with or whatever. It's almost toxic, but you cling to it because of the
Right.
success you're having.
Right.
So yeah, I guess basically I am asking, what was the impetus for the breakup at a point when it looked like things were going well?
Do you want the truth?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Has the truth not been told until this
Not
very
really.
moment? Okay.
Oh,
No.
okay. Well,
This is an
absolutely.
exclusive Talk Louder podcast moment then.
Yes.
Truth
Yeah.
be told on Talk Louder podcast.
Okay, so here we are we're opening up for the Reverend Horton Heat. We're in Colorado, I think. I think it was Colorado. And I get a phone call that says, you basically, Bob Pfeiffer, who signed you to Hollywood Records, just got fired, and therefore your band is dropped.
Yeah, we've heard
Okay.
that before. Yeah.
That's
So-
not how that's supposed to work, by the way. I mean,
know.
just
Well,
because a
this
guy brings you into the label, if that guy does something stupid, that has nothing to do with you, it doesn't mean
Exactly.
that you don't work for the company anymore. That's not how that's supposed to go.
Well,
Surely
exactly.
there was something in the contract that actually said that, but I understand.
No, there wasn't. It's just that they hated him so much that anyone that he, anyone that he brought into the label, they wanted to get rid of.
Poor son of a bitch. Damn
Yeah.
it.
It
It
was
was
convenient excuse, basically.
I swear I've met that guy before.
what?
Bob, I swear I've met him before.
Yeah, he was weird.
Sounds familiar.
He was a weird guy.
No, I'm
Anyway,
serious. I think I've met Bob Pfeiffer before.
probably. He actually went to jail, I think, after that. But anyway, that's a whole
Oh,
other
never
story.
mind. I've never met him before. Carry on.
Anyway, I just was like, okay, that totally sucks. What do we do? We're like out on the road. Like, who's going to pay for the hotel room? What are we going to do? Right. So anyway, but what was also going on behind the scenes was that, I worked incredibly hard to get to where I was. I mean, as far as getting up on stage and having a whole bunch of songs that I'd written and a band and a label. And I mean, it was really tough. I mean, when I lived in New York, I used to look at the menu because I had no money. I was just like, really like a starving artist. I don't know if you've ever seen how skinny I used to be. I literally was like a starving artist. And I would like go to the diner and I would have to order the food based on the price of the food, not what I wanted to eat. I mean, because all of my money, every single ounce of energy, all of my money went towards the band. Rehearsals, guitar string, you know what it's like. It's a very expensive hobby, as you know. And then when we started doing well, it was as if the rest of the band went, oh, party time. It like the hard work is over. It's party time. So I would go on stage and there would be just 2 drunk people and a drummer and me. And I'd be like, oh my God. And the Reverend Horton Heat tour was really tough because the Reverend Horton Heat audience were musos. They were musicians, and because the Reverend Horton Heat are very talented, consummate musicians, right? They're just out of control. All of them are uber talented. And they can drink a bottle of Jack Daniels and go on stage and not miss a note. Well, my band thought that they could do the same thing, but they couldn't. So I would go out there and do I sound bitter yet? Anyway,
No,
so I
this
go
is
out
great.
there and I would see like the front row all ready to go. And I'm like, yay, here we go, rock and roll. And like I'm playing the guitar. And then I'm like, I'm looking at like Danny or something, and he's like playing a different song that I'm playing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, this totally sucks. And then the front row would start looking at me like this. They blow. This band blows. And it was like it was like somebody had punched my soul across the room, because it was like, here I am in this position, so grateful, worked so hard to get here. And the people that I'm depending on are completely 100% letting me down and embarrassing me.
Wow.
So, yeah. And it really was like that. It really was.
Do you think that was the beginning of the end? And
That was the beginning of the end, because I would say to them, guys, Danny, Mark, could you please don't drink before you go on stage? Just have a beer or whatever. Do all the partying you want afterwards, but not before. Brijitte, you can't tell us what to do. What are you going to do? Okay, that's fine. Now let's see what happens. And that's what happened. And so, it's like basically pure selfishness, pure lack of discipline, pure lack of being a professional, pure lack of understanding. And this is the thing. When I got that call that said, you're dropped, I went, so what? We'll get another record company. You guys sucked anyway. We'll get another manager. Like, I was totally like, let's just keep going.
Yeah.
right.
I know that I'll be able to get someone to help. I know I'll be able to get another manager to step in.
Right.
We're doing really well. Just because Bob Pfeiffer doesn't work at Hollywood Records anymore doesn't mean New York Loose doesn't exist.
Right.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, the kind of the big clincher show, and I've told my personal friends and family this story, but I'll tell you guys. So we're at this show in Colorado, and I'm on stage, and I'm looking at Danny, I'm looking at Mark, and they're completely, like, literally embarrassing the fuck out of themselves and me, because they're playing, not even playing together. I mean, it sounded like shit. Sorry, I don't know. Can I say all these horrible?
Yeah, you're fine.
Absolutely.
Anyway, so I just went, I've got to end this, because I had the front row. You could see there were all sort of musicians just looking at me like, oh my, you totally blow, like, get off the stage. So I said, okay, this is going to be our last song. Thanks so much, Colorado. You guys have been amazing, but we really got to go. So, let's just do our last song. So anyway, I finished the song, and Danny goes into and I leave the stage, and Danny and Mark go into the next song on the set list. And I wasn't on the stage because they didn't hear me, because they didn't pay attention, because they were wasted.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You guys are in a band. You know how horrible that is, right?
Jason's
So
in the band.
Can you imagine? So I go up to the dressing room, and I'm listening to them going into the next song. They come up and they're so angry. They're like, Brijitte, what are you doing? You left the stage. Why did you leave the stage? I said, if you were not having your own private little rock show, you would have known that I said, this is the last song. I said, because you guys sucked, and I basically just wasn't allowed as a girl, as a woman, to say this, right? If I was a guy in a band talking to my other guy band members, they'd be like, okay, dude, sorry, yeah, not me. No. I'm a girl. Back then it was like, it was terrible, really terrible.
Yeah.
So I got the reputation of being a bitch. I got the reputation of being, an insensitive diva, which it's really could not be the furthest thing from the truth, to be very honest with you. And and Danny and Mark said, well, you know what? Fuck New York Loose. We want to start our own band. We want to start Moto Christ. Danny, you actually think you and Mark are going to be able to do anything that's, and like, look how far they went. So, yeah.
Yeah. For people listening that maybe don't know, Danny is, he's been the bass player for Faster Pussycat for a number of years. And Mark Diamond was in the Dwarves. And
I got him that gig, by the way.
The Dwarves?
I got him the Dwarves gig, yeah, because Black Dahlia was a huge New York Blues fan and followed us around a lot.
Yeah, and
particularly me. I was like, oh my God.
Mark spent some time in the Dwarves, and then he also fills in periodically with Junkyard. Just for people out there listening, just a little background on those two guys.
I'm sorry, Mark and Danny, that I have to tell the real story, but it had to be told at some point.
Yeah.
So well, I don't think it's a secret that they still like to drink. So.
Well, I mean, if all you have to do is YouTube Faster Pussycat bassist, falling off the stage, it's hilarious.
Yeah. So yeah, I was just going to mention. So everything that you're telling me leads me back to that video of Danny stumbling backwards into the drum kit, and Tammy just like, what was that?
Yeah, I mean, and this is the thing. He's allowed to do that in Faster Pussycat because Faster Pussycat is an established band that's had hit records, platinum albums, blah blah blah. It's fine. If we were already up there, I think it would have been, it would have been hard, but it wouldn't have been impossible because we would have had. But what I didn't tell you is that because people knew that we were getting dropped and that we weren't happy with our manager, we also had labels coming to see us, and we also had other managers coming to see us, and that no one wanted to pick us up because they thought we were totally unprofessional.
Yeah.
Your communication with your band is not. Nobody should take it personally, if things like that. It sounds like there was a bit of a car crash that not everybody in your band recovered from. I think that they were butthurt, but they were like butthurt by you. Well, you said, "No, I know we're destroying these songs, and this is our last song. Thank you, good night." And leaving the stage, that those guys were oblivious because they were wasted.
Totally oblivious.
That's a car crash. That they kept.
And that's not what a band is. A band, James Brown is like such a great example. He can just go hit me, and everyone knows what that means. That's an amazing live situation, right? That's what a band should be.
3 words. Well-oiled machine.
Yeah, exactly. And we were in the beginning. Oh my God, there are some videos out there. There's one of us in New York. There's another one of us live in Chicago. We were an amazing live band. We were tight. We were really good.
I feel like New York Blues has a great reputation still to this day because of those moments.
Yeah,
I feel like the things that the other guys have done, even if they're just in another band and able to work, that's great. It's just too bad that New York Blues, your songs are not really. You're the one who's pushing your songs. You're not really getting any help from the guys that kind of sort of left you hanging, right? And I'm not even talking bad about anybody. I'm just saying it's too bad that the car ran off the road. Yeah.
You know what? It's just too bad they didn't have the vision. They didn't go, actually, you know what? We were really great when we weren't drunk on stage. Look what we've achieved. Let's just pull it together. Let's just keep working really, really hard and just show up on stage and not be completely wasted. That's all they had to do. But yeah, it was too much to ask. So
that was thank you for telling us those stories to David's question. I think that's a reality check for a lot of bands, just on a level, some sort of level of professionalism. Mm-hmm. It's not, you weren't pulling like an Axl Rose. You know what I mean? You weren't showing up 3 hours late or leaving the stage 2 hours early. Hey, we just played 3 songs, fuck you, good night. You know, you didn't do that. You didn't
Yeah,
do,
I
you know,
loved what I did.
yeah,
I loved it. I loved getting out there. I loved rocking out. I loved it. Every moment
yeah.
of it I
You,
loved.
you were, your passion for your songs is real. And I feel like, you know, New York Loose, the being short lived like that is not your fault. It's
It's a
not even those
crime.
guys' fault. I just think that it got derailed and it's unfortunate.
Yeah, it's just one of those things,
Yeah.
just one of those things. Anyway, you asked and I told, so that's
No,
Yeah.
it.
that's great. Yeah, we appreciate that. I guess, if there is a silver lining out of all this, New York Loose does have a great deal of street cred. And I think that's something that a lot of bands strive for and don't always get. And
Mhm.
sometimes it's the short lived ones that, they made their mark. They didn't have an extended career, but while they were around, they burned brightly. And when Jason said that we were going to get you on the podcast, I was excited because I was like, "Oh man, the girl from New York Loose. That's they got so much street cred that it's right up my alley." I'm a big fan of all the New York music that sort of spawned New York Loose. I'm a fan of Degeneration and the Toilet Boys, and of course, the Ramones are one of my favorite bands. And uh, I know that you're a fan of the Stooges. So everything that the
Yeah.
place where you come from is right up my alley. So I
Yeah.
was excited that we were going to have you on today.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm excited to be here. I'm really excited that people remember New York Loose. I'm
Yeah.
really excited that we were able to achieve what we did, and it was a lot of fun. And I wish, I even said to Paul, the guy, Paul Unger, who works with me sometimes, like, what do you think about maybe doing a New York Loose reunion? What do you think that would be like? And he was like, I don't know. It's it's always that sort of thing on my mind. Like, what if? What if? But I'm kind of now just trying to just concentrate on my own music. Not that New York Loose wasn't my music, because most of it was, but just working in different ways than I did before. A little bit more on my own, and a bit more like, just like we said, like in a little bit more in isolation. It's been really nice not to have to rely on other people. That's been really, really good.
Yeah.
Lockdown, this album, it was just me. And so it was really good to just, be fully in control of it and not have to rely on anyone else.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
that can be healthy. And if you do have songwriting partners, they're going to understand. And if they don't, they don't know where you're coming from.
Yeah.
And that's okay. You just need to let them be, figure it out on their own, because that's the only way.
Mm.
I was going to comment on, not only anyone who is a direct member of New York Loose and the street cred the gang that you were kind of involved with just in the whole tenor of the group. But this sort of piggybacks what Dave was saying. Just, I mean, and also back to what you were saying about the Seattle scene was kind of taking over, and I don't feel like a victim of it, but I was all in there doing real well, and then all of a sudden this whole thing happens and it sort of like puts a wet blanket over what I was doing. Of course, I was thrown in with the Poisons and the Bon Jovis, which is not what I was trying to do at all, but they didn't have
Right.
anywhere else to put us. And bands like that, there were some from New York that were kind of like sort of holding on for dear life in the same way that New York Loose was, and you knew who they were. And I'm talking about Raging Slab, I'm talking about Circus of Power,
Yeah.
Freeway. There's a bunch of things going on all at the same time that you're like just grabbing the next rope, trying to see where your next meal is coming from, etc. Like
Mm. Mm.
literally and not so literal. Business step,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I feel like Slab and Circus, they didn't sell the records that even Junkyard or Dangerous Toys or maybe even Bang Tango or someone like that who wasn't really a Poison or a Bon Jovi. Rhino Bucket is another one of those. I'm
Yeah,
going more West Coast now.
I
Rhino
remember
Bucket was
them.
one of those
Yeah,
those bands that was
yep,
this sort of rough and tumble kind of like pub rock. Whether, I mean, slab is different than circus, but they're the same enough to be like, oh, these are just a bunch of old New York punk rock guys playing boogie woogie rock and roll. I
yeah,
get that. And I
yeah,
understand how everything sort of has to have, like we're talking business wise, has to have this box that it fits in, or they don't know what to do with you. I feel like you use the word victim, right? Which I hate to use that because, oh, poor you and poor me, we're victims. No, someone didn't know quite where, Bob Pfeiffer didn't even know quite where to put you guys. So that was why maybe the label was like, well, we're getting rid of him because we don't know what kind of shit he just signed. We don't
yeah,
get this. So these things are sort of these the stuffing in this thing that people are ripping open the stitches and going, what in the hell, my metaphors are good sometimes and they're terrible others, but
yeah,
they're trying to figure out how this thing works, and if they can't figure it out, they're just getting rid of it. And I
Yeah.
feel like that was happening across the board once. Oh, what Nirvana and what all this, and then they just move. They clean house and they bring in the new kids, and then it's like, well, God, this scene that was rumbling and that you cared so much about made you a lot of fucking money, and you're not going to try to develop these bands anymore just because there's this already thing that's been built by these bands on their own via DIY, just like the punk rockers and the hippies did. And it's ready to just be poised, and you just take over and start making money off of that's already built. That is the business. Now, the way that the music business is now, it's it's back to the hippies and the hardcore punk rockers who are
yeah,
just shut up and get in the van.
It's
Just
DIY.
do it
yeah,
yourself all the time. And the cool thing is there's so many resources out there, which you well know, for bands such as ourselves. It doesn't matter what age we are, if we have accolades and awards and stuff hanging on the wall or sitting on the shelf, go, yeah, I'm cool. It doesn't matter all that. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. There are resources. You can you can record your record on your own. You can put your record out by yourself,
yeah,
and the money goes right into your bank account.
yeah,
There's
Yeah.
no middleman. So
yeah, yeah. No,
sure,
so
the glitz and glamour of the whole MTV, that's kind of gone anyway. It's all turned into game show anyway. So
yeah,
Yeah. Um,
that's true.
tell me about the Marilyn Manson tour, because
fun.
obviously Manson was huge at that point.
Yeah.
So he's a major arena attraction, and you're out on the road supporting. So tell me a little bit about that tour from your perspective.
Well, first of all, it was. I remember our label said Marilyn Manson is a really big fan of yours, and he wants to take you out on the road. And I was like, oh my God, really? He goes, and I said, okay. I said, that's cool. But what about the spooky kids? I mean, how are they going to feel about it? Because the spooky kids were like Marilyn Manson's sort of underground army. They were, talk about DIY. I mean, they did everything for him. I mean, it was amazing. He had like this following of kids. And so I was a little bit nervous about it. There was this album, huge album that everybody was talking about, but nobody could say what it was called until the day it was released. And I thought, okay, so let's do it. And then they said, by the way, he has asked a couple of other bands, but no one will do it. Everyone's too scared. And I was like, that's okay, we'll do it. That's fine. So anyway, we started the tour in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I remember that because I love the name Tuscaloosa. I thought that was just so cool. Anyway, so we were in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and we started the tour. And the album was called Antichrist Superstar, and it was about to become a huge album. But at that point, no one had really heard of him outside of the Spooky Kids and this sort of more kind of underground scene. And we went on stage and we had bottles thrown at us. We were booed. It was really tough. And I didn't really know how to handle that because I'm thinking, this is weird. Like, I've had people not like the band before, but I've never been actually physically attacked. And physically felt like I might actually get hurt up here.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really know what to do. So I think it was almost like out of anger and frustration. I had a bottle of Jack Daniels on stage, and I didn't really drink, to be honest with you, but I did have it because it looked cool. Anyway, so what I did was I took at the last song I got really pissed off, and I just started taking the bottle of Jack Daniels and like kind of drinking it, and then just spewing it over the front two rows, and just like I can spit really far, by the way. So I did that, and they absolutely loved it.
Of course they did. Of course they did.
I know. And they were like, yeah, spit on me. And so like the next show, it was like, I had like kids with like T-shirts that said spit on me and, we love you, Brijitte, and da-da-da. So I kind of, it was just one of those things. It was like survival. And we ended up totally winning over their audience. And then there were all these rumors flying around that I was like dating Manson. I was like, no. But anyway, but yeah, so that was cool. And we went from playing theaters to stadiums on that tour. And it was absolutely the coolest rock and roll circus you could possibly ever imagine.
That's cool that you were
amazing.
You guys were kind of there when that record broke. You're standing right there. You're the support act when the record broke.
We were.
Yeah.
We were. And the album is awesome.
Yeah.
And he and the band were awesome. And all of his team and the lighting and the stage. He had this guy called Laurence, I'll never forget. He was an English guy who did all the Shakespearean theater here in the UK. And he did all the lighting design. So if you went to go see Midsummer Night Dream or something like that at the Globe Theater, which is it's kind of like a replica of the original Shakespeare theater. He had seriously professional people on that tour, and it was amazing what they did. Really, really amazing. The lights, the show. It was, I know you've probably seen Alice Cooper, and you see some of the stuff that he brings out and stuff. It was a little bit like that, but like on a whole other scale.
Yeah.
And it was just great. It was great theater. It really was. And he was brilliant. He used to let me do his makeup. It was great. We had a really good relationship.
He got all that from Alice, just throwing that out there.
Of course he did. But he loved Alice. We both loved Alice. Alice is, for me, he's like a god. And but I got to meet so many people through him as well. So it was a fun rock and roll tour, and that was still when we were still kind of had that was when the band still had their heads on straight. We were still, professional and showed up on stage and did the job. Yeah, we were still doing the job then, so that was good.
So you mentioned the UK. You're living in the UK, correct?
I've been living in the UK since 1999.
Okay, so tell me where are you from originally, and how did you end up in the UK on a permanent basis?
Okay, so I originally am from New Jersey. I'm from the same area that John Bon Jovi's from, and Bruce Springsteen, like sort of central Jersey, like by the shore sort of thing.
Tom's River?
Yeah, around that area, yeah. And so that's where I grew up. As soon as I graduated high school, I went to New York City and started to study and that sort of stuff. But then I thought, I want to be in a band. So I'd always played guitar and that kind of stuff. I was working at art galleries and that sort of thing. And I'd met I was sort of in like the art scene in New York, really, actually. But I started a band. I started New York Loose. I met Rick Backus from D-Generation. We dated for about 9 years. And yeah, so I wrote a couple songs with Rick. So The Luckiest Girl which is one of the early New York Blues 7-inch singles, is a song that I wrote with Rick, and we put that out as one of the first New York Blues singles. And now his band is called Richard Backus and the Luckiest Girls.
Right.
Oh, that's cool.
But
Yeah.
yeah, but actually, we actually had a band called Viva La Wattage first, so we did that one, and then he joined D-Generation, and then I started doing New York Blues, but he was sort of playing guitar a little bit for New York Blues as well. Wait, the question was, where am I from? And I'm sorry.
You're good. You're giving us some good background.
Yeah, we like the background.
Yeah.
I'm as I mentioned, a D-Generation fan, and Rick came through town on a solo tour one time after D-Generation broke up, and he was playing this little dive here in Austin called Headhunters. And I went down to the show to see him because I'm a D-Generation fan, and I met him and we hung out a bit, and he actually gave me a T-shirt that night that I still wear to this day. So yeah, it says Richard Backus, and it's got this skull with the acoustic.
Oh, I know it.
Yeah, the acoustic guitars in the eyes,
Yeah, he's a really talented artist as well. I don't know if you've ever seen his sketches and things. He's a really talented kid, really, really talented. Anyway, so yeah,
you're in Jersey.
Yeah, so you're in the New York scene working.
Yeah, I moved to New York, and I was in the New York scene, and it was the whole thing, the D-Generation and the Raging Slab and the Circus of Power, and we were all kicking around, and then got signed, was on the road for many years, then went back to, where did I go? Lived in New Orleans, made a record with Sean Yseult from White Zombie.
Okay.
It's called The Famous Monsters.
Yes.
Oh, I know that record.
Yes.
You do?
Yeah, I think I might have
Get
it
out of here, really?
I think I might have it behind me somewhere.
I'm Vampire Girl.
Awesome.
Oh wow. Yeah, we're friends with Sean's husband.
Chris.
Yeah, Chris Lee. Supergroup.
Supergroup. I was there when they met.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I was living with Shauna, and we made the Famous Monsters album, and then but I was like, I don't really want to do this full time. I was sort of really getting into my songwriting, so I started a band called Sandusky, which you'll be able to find on Spotify as well. It's 2 words, Sandusky, because I'm a huge Wilco fan. And I met Pat Sansone from Wilco when I was living in New Orleans. Which I'm still friends with Pat now, and things were not great with me and Sean because she really wanted me to keep doing Famous Monsters, but I didn't see it as something I wanted to do full time, So anyway, then I moved to LA and did a couple bits and pieces there, and wrote a couple songs and sent them over to Sony Music Publishing in the UK for some reason. I don't know why they went there, but anyway, they liked them, and they said, "Why don't you come here and just you had some fun in the UK with New York Blues. Why don't you come back and do some stuff and write with our stable of writers?" And so I did, and I kind of never left. And that was I came here in '99, and then life took over, so I stayed.
That's a pretty cool, sort of like
trajectory.
Yeah, that's like your story was fairly, I don't want to say typical or normal, or whatever. But you're Jersey, you're New York scene, you got a deal, you rock and roll, you're on the road, you go to New Orleans. Hey, Sean, Famous Monsters, cool. I'm gonna go to LA, a couple songs at what? UK?
Yeah.
kind of a normal and like slingshot kind of a thing.
Yeah, I know, right?
Are things for your? Do you feel like things opened up for you a little bit when you got over there?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I
maybe personally.
Oh yeah, for my personal life, I met the father of my children. We're not together anymore, but that's another story. And I sort of did the whole kind of motherhood thing in England.
Okay.
so I never had kids in America. My kids have never done the American school thing. They've never gone to like the high school dance. Like, it's really weird. I live a very English life now. And I live.
It's a good line in a song. I never went to the high school dance. It's not, I was not allowed at the high school dance. I like it.
They saw you coming and called security.
That's right. Yeah. That's
So obviously the UK has some lasting appeal for you, and some of that is based on your personal life.
I mean, listen, when you move somewhere and then you have kids in a different country and their father is from it, you can't. You're kind of stuck. I mean, you're not gonna like. There was no way I could move back to New York with the kids,
right?
If their father was here, So
right.
And I can think of a lot worse places to be stuck. I absolutely love living here.
Great.
It's great.
I was kind of sort of hopefully creating a path that you would dart down that would have been something like, I hope that you moving there like opened your muse and you became, you wrote like a shit ton of songs because of where you were, whether you felt like you were floating or that you had claimed stake claim rather. And I feel like, that big jaunt, and then, you meet your guy and you have kids, and it's like, that's even more inspiration for more material. Do you feel like that? Well, it sounds like a big deal.
Well, my God, yeah, it is.
And it very well, as a creative person, it very well could. I mean, it just sounds, whether it's you or Dave or me or her or him or whoever, it just sounds to me like this, like boing, and then could you could really kind of start a whole new you creatively, because my kids can't go to the high school dance.
Well, I did. I mean, listen, first of all, if you listen to the Sandusky album, Lonely Satellite is a song I wrote when I came to England. And I thought, oh my God, I'm actually never going back home. So I'm sort of like stuck out here like a satellite. I'm sort of, right. So that one.
That title makes you think about the story that you just told.
Yeah. So listen to that song, because that one's really, really about me going to England and realizing I was, it was a bit like, Major Tom. It's like, can you hear me? Like, I'm here now. Right. I can't leave.
Holy crap.
Yeah, holy crap.
Yeah.
And then the first New York Loose album, the first Desperate Hopefuls album, the Brijitte West and the Desperate Hopefuls album, there's a lot of stuff on that about being a mom and being just having to live this life. I had to live this life that was, here I was like sort of this New York rock chick, and I'm showing up at the English private schools, and like the moms are like, what the fuck is that?
That's like a movie. I feel like I'm watching a movie of this like fish out of water thing.
I wasn't actually accepted.
Yeah. Oh, that's even better.
I was eventually. I sent my kids to another school, and then it was more like-minded, and it turned out it was great, because there was more artists, musicians, actors, actresses that went there. So it was good. But and then I have a song on From New York with Love, which is the second Brijitte West and the Desperate Hopefuls album, and that song is called Done It Proud, and that song is totally about me doing what I've done, with my music, becoming a mother, persevering and keeping going with my music and with my muse, and still communicating to my muse, even though I've got all these other sort of demands on me. And so that song really, really says, what if there's other women out there that are musicians and having kids or have kids, and my God, it is a hard journey, but it's so important to keep in touch with who you really are.
Oh yeah.
And because when you become a parent, especially as a mom, you are asked to give up who you really are. That's
Yeah.
what society wants you to do. They just want you to fade into the background and become a mother. And, it made me incredibly unhappy for a very long time when I did that, until I realized I didn't have to do that anymore. So
Yeah.
I'm actually really, really happy. I'm starting a new business here now. I just bought an amazing building that's sort of late 1700s.
Wow.
I'm redoing it, and I'm doing an art gallery, and selling some just really awesome stuff. So yeah.
Nice.
So
Nice.
that's all going to happen in the spring. So yeah, so I'm trying to like metamorphose myself as much as I can, as often as I can.
Well,
I feel
just stay creative at all costs.
exactly.
Just stay creative at all cost.
It's
In
so important.
any forum, any just
Anyway,
left,
I mean,
right, yeah.
I don't know how to do anything else except for write music and play guitar a little bit and write songs. I'm in awe of people that can paint and that can draw and that can build and that can do all those sorts of things with their hands. I find it really, really, really interesting.
So
So
this building that you bought, tell us
yeah.
again what you're going to do with this building.
So it was a fish and chip shop. And it had for many years. It's been in the same family for like 200 years. I'm like the first person that is actually on the register of the council, because like in the database. My lawyer, I saw my lawyer the other day, and he showed me all the papers that have been associated with this building for the past 200 years, and they're all sort of like old English, script on scrolls almost. It's so
That is
weird.
awesome.
It's so cool. I can't
Yeah.
believe I got it. Oh my God. And so it needs to be completely gutted. It was a fish and chip shop on the bottom floor, and then on the top floor it's an apartment. And then there's an outbuilding outside and sort of a courtyard. And it's in a town called Petworth, which is known for sort of antiques and art and that sort of stuff.
Wow.
And it's about an hour from London, and it's in West Sussex, so it's a beautiful area.
Will it be
And
an art studio?
yeah. So it's gonna be an art gallery. I'm gonna carry a lot of different contemporary art and classic art, and then also antiques and sort of old things. I just bought a whole bunch of mid-century things from the '60s. I love 60s design, so it'll have a little bit of that sort of thing. Really sort of collectible things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Wow.
like
I'm
it.
really looking forward to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds like a lot of fun,
Yeah.
and then it sounds like you're in any avenue. It sounds like you're being extremely creative in any way that you can, and it's good, and it's also impressive that your kids are now teenagers, and it's going to even just give you a little bit more room just to kind of
Yeah.
like be able to have that high even more, especially with your new digs.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
so excited. My son Jasper turned 18 in November. That
Oh,
was
wow.
really amazing.
Yeah.
Like
Milestone.
amazing, to have gone through this journey with him as his mother, from a baby to 18.
Wow.
Sure.
I'm so blessed. I'm so grateful. My kids are just amazing.
Awesome. Well,
So
congratulations on that part of your life
Thank
and future creations, whether it be song or art of any kind, for sure.
yeah.
Thanks. And you guys too. You guys keep doing what you're doing, because it's so important.
Yeah, we love
Yeah.
this. This was
We-
kind of fell in our lap. It was actually created by one of my guitar players, Jared Tuten, who's kind of a behind the scenes producer of the entire thing and how that story goes. And we've talked about it, a whole lot of times. I can't even count, but I don't mind mentioning it again. It's like called us up on might have been a text message. Dave can correct me if I'm wrong. It said, "What do you guys think about doing a podcast?" And the whole thing was, when here comes Jason and here comes Dave, and they meet at a party and they start talking about rock and roll, and either
Yeah.
the whole room joins in or just is like
Brilliant.
jaws open watching us geek out on things rock and roll, and just, oh, I have
Brilliant.
that record, I have that
Yeah.
poster, oh, I
Yeah.
grew up with that, and all that kind of a thing. Or the room disappears, like, God, listen to these nerds. I'm not gonna, So it went either way, but it's good and bad same time, but it's a process that does happen. and me and Dave have been friends a long time, and Jared's not wrong. He's like, you know that thing that happens when you guys hang out? Let's put that on a podcast. And I was like, I could see that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so cool because it really, I mean, it is sort of like a tribe. I always think like I've been kind of like born into a tribe, and this is the tribe. It's like we know all these things about, Iggy Pop and Dee Dee Ramone and all these people that, and bands like obscure bands like the Saints, like from Australia or whatever, and and it's like we're like this tribe of people that
Absolutely. Yeah.
we get together and we can hang out no matter where we are from or what our backgrounds are from. We can just talk the rock and roll talk,
That's right. I always look at it
cool.
like it's the first day of school and you don't know anybody and you're looking for the kid wearing a Motorhead shirt.
Yeah.
And that's your only friend.
That's my friend right there.
You
He
make-
doesn't know it yet,
People.
but we're about to be friends.
Make your friends one at a time, and then next thing you know, you have 1,000.
Yeah.
And that's your tribe, and that's how you're inoculated, or however you want to call it,
Yeah.
So how do you, I have to ask this. So
Yeah.
how do you know Paul Unger?
Oh my God. Well, Paul Unger. Well,
For people listening, I'll just, and you can join in with me. Paul Unger is this wonderful human being who his first love had to have been rock and roll. He is from, I'm probably going to get this wrong, Naples, Ohio. I think that's right, actually. Middle of Ohio. He started helping promote bands and like street teaming for bands in his area, and he even put on shows for bands coming through town or local bands or whatever. He's one of those kind of guys, and I've known him for 25 years or something like that as this guy, and it's almost like you could say he knows everybody. He knows Jared, our producer, who was in a band called Pariah on Geffen Records. And Paul was actually living in Texas at the time that they were starting to come up. And anyway, how does Paul Unger fit into this?
Well, Paul Unger, I think I met Paul Unger through somebody called Renfield, who was Alice Cooper's assistant. Who sadly is no longer with us. But I think that's how we actually, or maybe Paul Unger turned Renfield onto New York Loose, and then Renfield turned Alice Cooper onto New York Loose, and we got to open for Alice Cooper and have been friends with Alice Cooper ever since. But I think that's how. Anyway, he has been, honestly, like a lifeline for me, because without Paul Unger, I would have forgotten a long time ago who I really was. In other words, he's the guy that knocks on my door virtually and says, "Brijitte, what are you doing? Are you going to make a new record? Are you? I think I can get you somebody to interview you. I'm the biggest New York Loose fan that ever was, and I think that we're going to do." And he is just so proactive, and he's amazing. And he basically put together Lockdown for me. All I did was send the songs. He did the artwork. He did everything. He's doing all the promotion. He is honestly my lifeline. He's my rock and roll lifeline. He really is.
He's an angel.
He is. I mean, without people like him or without Paul, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be doing this interview. I wouldn't have made Lockdown. I wouldn't have done any of that.
He's a rock and roll angel.
He really is.
Rock
He's a
and roll
guardian
savior.
angel.
He is, yes, all of those things. He's like a superhero. He's an angel. Because all of the things that you just said, he's done that to me, knock on my door virtually. And
Yeah.
are you right, Jason? Are you writing any more Christmas songs? Give me all you got. I want to write an article about them. I'm like, holy shit! No one else is wanting to write an article about my Christmas songs, or whatever the hell it is. So
You should have him as a guest on the show.
I think that that's a great idea. he's worked with so many people.
Yeah,
Even if it just be like a sort of for some reason the word kaleidoscope comes to mind. Well, it could be like a scrapbook, if you will, and
fantastic
we
conversation,
could
right?
fly the photos because he takes pictures with everyone. I've got
Yeah,
pictures
for
of him with
sure.
Alice and everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Um. So so that sounds like where did you so you how when was that you met him through Renfield?
I think it was 1997,
Oh
98.
wow. Okay.
Long
Okay.
time.
Yeah, this would have been I met Paul probably 10 years prior. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah,
Okay.
long time, 30 something years. The interesting thing about Paul is he has not changed except for his hair color. Not one thing has changed about Paul Unger. Um,
And that's cool. That's really saying something.
yeah, I agree 100%. I saw him a few months ago. I was in the middle of Pennsylvania, and he traveled to see me perform, and I hadn't seen him in years, so he was right there, front row, holding me up all night.
Aw.
So, Brijitte, I have to ask you, as someone who spent time in the New York rock and roll scene,
Yeah.
and me being a huge Ramones fan, do you have any
Mm.
Ramones stories that you can share with us? Did you ever cross paths
I
You,
see
at
evil
any time?
grin now. I
have
see
you
I
some kind of
see
have
an.
you
evil
not done
grin.
any research?
I no. Well, I
Well,
want
what?
you to.
Well,
Let's say no. We've done no research.
Yeah.
no.
You ever heard of the Ramones?
Wait, have you not? Because I used to, okay. I don't know. Did you see my have you seen any of my stories about Dee Dee? Have you listened to any of my stories about Dee Dee?
I have not. No.
Oh my God, really?
Oh,
Okay.
this is going to be good.
Hmm.
This is going to be good.
Good
All right.
setup here.
Okay, so me and Rick Backus
Hmm.
had now hold on. This was even before we were called Viva La Wattage. Anyway, I was trying to find band members. I was trying to find a bass player. Um, anyway, so I walk into the what was it called? It was called like one of the it was one of the clubs on the west side. Um, I can't remember what it was called now. Anyway, and Dee Dee Ramone's at the bar, and someone said, "Oh, maybe Dee Dee will play bass for you." And I was like, "Ha ha ha, that's so funny." And he was like, "I'll play bass for you."
Wow.
Oh my God. And it was like, it
That was
was
easy.
so surreal. I was like, are you joking? It was so surreal. Anyway, for like 5 minutes, Dita Ramone was my bass player.
5 minutes.
Yeah, he was leaving the Ramones. He was leaving Vera, his wife, and he was leaving the Ramones. And it was just like, the Ramones were fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting. And he was like, I just want to have fun. And and this is just before he did D.D. King. So it was before he went completely off the rails.
Yeah.
So um,
I have that on vinyl.
Dave, that's what she meant by 5 minutes.
Yeah.
oh yeah, no, this is going to take longer. This is a whole other interview.
I
This
opened
is,
up a can of worms.
yeah, I mean, maybe we need to do part two because this,
Give us
us a-
a Dee Dee story. Just use this one as, take what you need, but condense.
all right. He decided that he was in love with me and that I needed to be in love with him. And I'm thinking, I'm not in love with you. I'm a huge fan, but anyway. So he was in my apartment. I was working at a gallery, like I said, in New York, called The Psychedelic Solution, which was a fantastic gallery. And he called me at work and said, I have a shotgun in my mouth and I am going to blow my head off if you don't come home.
Not
Ta-da!
good.
What do you think about that story? I'm
Not good.
serious.
That's terrible.
And I went, oh my God. And I told it even gets weirder. You ready? I told my boss, I said, listen, I don't know what to do. I said, Dee Dee is in my house with a shotgun in his mouth.
Wow.
And he's going to blow his head off if I don't go home.
Mm-mm.
And he goes, I'm going to call Chris Stein and Debbie Harry and see what they say. So he did. Next thing I know, Chris Stein and Debbie Harry are sitting in the office with us. And Debbie Harry's going like, well, Brijitte, what did you do to, cause Dee Dee to do that? And I'm like, what? It's not my fault. I mean, it was the most bizarre thing ever. Anyway, I think Chris went over to the apartment and Dee Dee lived to make other records, basically.
Wow.
And that was like 1987, I think. Something
Dark
like
moment.
Wow. Wow. Well, that's not exactly what I was looking for, but
No.
I do appreciate your honesty and
He had my name tattooed on his arm.
Oh my God.
wow.
Yeah, it was like, and everyone was thinking, wait, like you must be stalking him. How can it be the other way around? I'm like, I'm telling you, it is.
Wow. Wow.
Really weird. Really weird.
Yeah, interesting guy. Great musician, great songwriter, but obviously had some demons and some personality issues, I guess you could say. But
I loved him dearly. I need to add that. I mean, as you know, he was just the most gentle, wonderful, beautiful soul.
He
But
didn't
he
seem like
really, really was troubled.
yeah, it
Very
didn't seem like
troubled.
he was. I didn't know the man, but it didn't seem like he was afraid of very much. But there were certain things that he was
Mm,
afraid of. My only Dee Dee story is I'm standing in line to get into the Cat Club in New York, and
yeah.
I'm standing there in a line with other people that I did not know, and I believe my guys were already inside, is what it was. And I'd just been dropped off, and it's kind of a hustle bustle. I'm rubbing elbows with people I don't know, and I'm just trying to get into the club, and in my peripheral vision, I'm kind of seeing someone, short little guy next to me, and holy shit, that's Dee Dee Ramone. Hey man, what's going on? And he was like, hey, what's up?
Mm.
I'm just here. Yeah. How are you? And I had a 3-minute conversation with Dee Dee Ramone, and that was it.
He was so nice. He
Yeah,
was a
he was,
lovely,
but he
lovely
didn't,
man.
he was by himself. No one was fucking with him. There was
Yeah.
no like fanboy shit going on.
No, he was the
I,
real deal.
yeah. Yeah. I
And,
agree.
he actually had a band in New York. I don't know if you may know this. You probably do. Called the Chinese Dragons. Did you know that?
yeah, yeah,
That's Dave's forte. Yeah.
They
yeah,
were amazing.
yeah.
They were so cool. But
Who
no
was?
one knew. Suddenly he did this D.D. King thing, and then everybody knew about that. But
Yeah,
the
I have
Chinese
that.
Dragons ruled.
he's like, even, when you say living legend, I automatically think of people like Lemmy and, Dee Dee, and the Ramones, they didn't quite sell the records they knew they were going to sell until they were all kind of gone. Then they became this like huge blown up thing, right? So I feel like the Ramones were living legends sort of on just above an underground kind of thing. Like
They managed. I don't
could
know how they did it. They
yeah,
managed to do that.
just could
You know,
blow
to
up at
be
any moment, but never really did until they were all gone, good or
yeah.
bad or ugly, whatever. But I feel like Dee Dee was one of these. I mean, he used to hang out with television. He used to like, I don't know if he helped them write songs together, but he could have just been partying with them. I don't know, but I know that that was kind of a thing. And when you listen to television and you think about Dee Dee just maybe like lurking in the room, I don't know. I had this vision of that when I listened to television, and that's not very often. I like television, but I don't think I own any of their records. I teach
Mm,
music, and sometimes we'll do like classic punk shows, and there'll be a television song right next to a
cool.
Ramones song, which is not even ironic. So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
those kinds of things make me think of him very often, and then in stories like this, dark, light, whatever. I really think that
Yeah.
it just goes to the creative side of what we're all
Exactly. I
kind of
mean,
doing here.
exactly. Like I said, he was the real deal. I mean, when
Yeah,
you're dealing with someone that lives that that actually lived it and actually created it. I mean, the Ramones created all of this music
That's
that we
right.
listen to now. They
That's
created
right.
it. I mean, they were, of course, it's not going to be a straightforward person. This isn't
No.
going to be the kind of person that you can kind of just have a normal like chat with, like you can for, the guy at the bank or, the guy that's selling. I mean, he's Didi Ramone, for Christ's sake. You know what I mean? It's
True.
like
It's fucking
completely,
true.
totally. I mean, you
Yeah.
have to make allowances.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah,
either
yeah, yeah.
he's either cracking you up or he's causing you a great deal of concern.
Absolutely.
Which one of you?
I wouldn't have it any other way. I wouldn't
You
have it
did
any other
both.
way.
Yeah.
No way.
Wow.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I feel
I
like
mean,
go ahead.
I'm so sad. I was so sad when he died. I mean, I was really sad. I mean, I just can't believe that they're all gone. I mean, it's just tragic.
Yeah.
It
Yeah, it
really
almost
is.
doesn't make sense in a weird
Doesn't
way.
make sense.
One of my favorite bands for sure. We
The
had
I feel like, I'm sorry, Dave. I feel like, something you just said. You could say that about a lot of people, but back to New York and the CBGB scene, like the bands that broke there, uh, whether there's this many or only this many, you could pick probably this many of them and say the exact same thing. Like they were not like each other, but they were from the same tribe. Like tonally, their music was not. I mean, the Heads were not like the Ramones, and the Ramones were not like Patty. And you see what I'm saying? It's like
And Suicide was like none of them.
yeah.
right. But
Yeah.
then, and Blondie, none of those cats were. It's kind of, I mean, maybe some of Debbie's band could have played with the Heads, but it's not the same kind of. Everybody had their own like breakout tone and sound and
For
thing,
sure.
but they
Yeah.
were definitely part of this whole movement. And it's I really feel like every metropolis has its own CBGB's kind of a kind of nucleus, sort of like
Mhm.
It's the
bowl
incubator.
of junk that creates this thing that people who are just like the sprockets, or the spokes, I'm sorry, to something like that, are like gunning for. Like, I want to, that's such an influence. And that is the reason why I am the way that I am, because their music spoke to me. And that's why we have a show called Talk Louder.
Yeah.
This is
Awesome.
exactly
That's so cool.
why we do this, is because of
Love it.
people like you, Brijitte. Thank you for being here with us today.
Yeah, really. Thanks for joining us today. This was
Oh,
great, and I really appreciate you being so forward and honest with some of these stories that
about
you dug
time.
up. No,
Please,
it's great
please
stuff.
eat.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you promoting me as well, because
Yeah.
it's really nice, because I always think, oh God, people are going to forget about me at some point. So
We want people to be aware of your new stuff as well as your legacy, of course, with New York
you.
Blues. So, yeah. So we'll get the word out. We thank you for joining us and helping us get the word out. We appreciate all the little sidebar stories too. That's always good stuff. Jason, you got anything else for Brijitte?
No, this has been fantastic. Thank you for being
Yeah.
here with us today.
Been a
It's
lot of
been-
fun.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. It's been really fun for me too. So thank you for having me on, and thank you for, keeping the sort of this torch kind of burning. It's so important.
Absolutely.
Amen
Absolutely.
to that. Yeah.
Well, that'll do it for another episode of the Talk Louder podcast. I'm Metal Dave Glessner, along with my co-host Jason McMaster and Brijitte West joining us today.